Hello everyone, how are you going? And welcome to the History of Poutine, something that I've certainly heard and learnt a lot about in terms of the modern era, but I just do not know where it all came from and how it truly became one of Canada's favourite dishes.
Poutine was created around the end of the 50s in the Centre du Québec. The dish is made of French fries, cheese curds, and brown gravy. The origin of this iconic dish is still unsure because many restaurants in the area are still arguing about being the originators. One of them is Le Roi Giuseppe in Drummondville. For many, poutine is from this restaurant, and they're using the inventor of poutine as their trademark. This drive-in restaurant served French fries with gravy, but some consumer will add cheese curds. The owner of the restaurant in 1964, Jean-Paul Roy, was the first one to serve the dish as we know today. According to some, the owner started to serve the dish after many requests. In the menu, it was called fromage patate sauce. They later changed it to poutine, which was from the word pudding, but also tsiput, the nickname of a cook.
Wait. Alright, I got a lot out of that already, just going, when did it come from, who started it, or who maybe started it, what restaurant, but also just where the name in the first place even came from, and the fact that it originated from pudding. I mean, I guess I can make and draw the connections, but that is definitely interesting to hear that everyone was just requesting it, and that it just came from one person, and oh man, it's just such a web that has obviously just cast itself all over Canada now, becoming such a, like I said, favourite dish of everyone's, virtually everyone's that I've ever heard of, but still just obviously needing an origin somewhere, and this is it. And to be honest, I for whatever reason didn't or wouldn't have expected it to be in Quebec. I don't know, I guess there's any part of Canada could have invented it. Honestly, if they said it came from another part of the world and they just mashed it together, it would have been the same thing too. In saying that though, I can absolutely understand why every single person in this town is going to be wanting to lay claim to this, because, I mean, it's just such a historical dish. I mean, in the same way that Nanaimo has a bit of a murky history as far as I'm aware, for goodness sake, if you could somehow trademark something like this, I mean, by the same metric, you probably wouldn't even want to. The amount of backlash you would get from everyone just now can't get their meal of the day, so to say. But no, just the fact that all of these places just have such a murky history, it's almost like if you could pinpoint the person that just originally created maple syrup or any of these kind of dishes, it's just insane to think that it kind of came from one person or a collection of ideas like that.
In the menu, it was called fromage patate sauce. They later changed it to poutine, which was from the word pudding, but also tsiput, the nickname of a cook in the restaurant. The restaurant displays a certificate issued by the Canadian Intellectual Property Office, which states that Roy invented poutine. Then there is Le Lutin qui rit in Warwick. According to a legend, in 1957, a client named Eddie Lennes asked the owner, Fernand Lachance, to put fries and cheese inside of a takeout bag, and the owner said, "Ça va faire une maudite poutine," which can be translated as, "It will make a damn mess." Mr. Lachance.
I was gonna say, there is no way that you could be transporting anything that has that amount of grease and liquid, and especially if you're going to be melting the cheese and everything, in a paper bag. I mean, maybe they were just trying to make a very awful contraption and they were going to set it on fire on someone's porch, and then they went, actually, this is fantastic. Why don't I just eat this every single day for the rest of my life and just get this guy to make it, trademark it, and just go from there? But even, like I said, just the fact that this is a contradictory thing in terms of they have a certificate, or the other people they mentioned have a certificate from the intellectual properties, but they just still, I guess, ignore it, or folklore ignores it, or whatever you want to be calling, going, no, these people just apparently invented it as well. And I guess a major question that I otherwise do have is, when did it just make the transition from perhaps what it was originally into what it was today? I mean, I just cannot imagine that someone was just carrying around or ordering cheese curds and chips. I mean, they said cheese, but is cheese curds cheese at the same time, or you're just putting cheese and then they go, actually, we need more of a whey product, and they just developed it from there? I just don't know is what we're talking about today, or what we see today as part of their everyday diet, the same as what they're talking about right now in terms of it being made in the 1960s, or does it trace its roots back a lot longer? You know, everybody basically had potatoes, especially with all the Irish and the UK coming over. You slice up a few potatoes, you get the whey from the cow and the milk and everything like that, and all of a sudden, bam, you got basically every ingredient you need besides the gravy, which I guess does act as the glue, both metaphorically and literally. But I really do think that you could not rule that out as a possibility. You know, just everyone stealing, slowly accumulating, whatever you want to call it, ideas, and where is the true origin is usually not the popular one.
It will make a damn mess. Mr. Lachance used the word poutine for the word mess. At the beginning of 1962, Mr. Lachance added hot gravy to keep it warm. And then, the last one, La Petite Vache in Princeville. This restaurant was founded in 1966 by Henri Provencher. At the time, Princesse, a cheese store, couldn't sell the gravy cheese. La Petite Vache was next to the store, so they started to sell the cheese in the restaurant. A client bought the cheese while he was ordering fries. He then started to mix them together. The owner of La Petite Vache around the time, Max Sévigny, confirmed in November 2010 the first name of Poutine was 50-50, a clear reference to 50% of fries and 50% of cheese. The gravy was later included in the dish, which is why it was called mixed.
Well, there we go. If we needed any more evidence as to what I was talking about before as to how we probably will never know who truly made it, and it probably is also just a combination of ideas. I mean, even the fact that they said that the gravy came later is kind of an interesting one to me, because I would have thought that it just would have been a given, you know, just you would have had almost the chips and the gravy, and then the cheese came in, and that's what made the dish, not the chips and the cheese and then the gravy came later. To be honest, I kind of feel bad for the person that actually made this dish. I mean, having this many people contest you and just go, no, it was mine, and honestly, maybe just multiple people made it at the same time. That could also just throw a massive spanner in the works, that somehow the ideas were just conjured up and you had one person just ordering chips and cheese and everything else, and then another person just got named the dish, whatever it may be. You could certainly just have so many different factors, but just to be having it almost just stolen out from under you, just having it contested when you can, in your mind's eye, just prove that it was you. But all of these years later, there would be very, very few and very, very little evidence supporting your case just to lay claim to the entire thing. And I guess it's 60 years, and so if there were 40, it would be a hell of a stretch to be saying that these people are still even able to substantiate their claims. So I guess it is just going to have to be something that is forever just added to the record books, because you can't really prove it. But to be honest, I think it almost adds to its godlike status. Just, it could have been anyone, it could be anything, and you will never truly know its true roots.
For years, poutine was mostly consumed in smaller restaurants, pubs, at roadside ship wagons, and in hockey arenas. In other provinces, the dish was long mocked and perceived negatively, but also used by some to stigmatize Quebec society. While the first generations suffer from these mockeries, Quebec youth has recently been able to reappropriate it in a more positive way as a symbol of Quebecois cultural pride. For years, it remained a country snack food in Quebec's dairy region due to the narrow freshness window of cheddar cheese curds. In 1969, poutine was brought to Quebec City in Ashton Leblanc food truck. In the early 1970s, La Banquise began serving poutine in Montreal, followed by the Burger King chain in 1983.
Wow, that is insane that Burger King jumped on the wagon so early in the 80s. I mean, it's not the 60s, but really to have it so widespread like that in a true fast food just chain, that is insane. I mean, I've seen the McDonald's ads and I've seen all those things, and it makes sense that these days they were going to be including it, but just to be putting it in all the way back then, only 15 years after it even apparently originated, I think is a pretty cool thing for them to be jumping on board with. I mean, switching it up a little though, I definitely did get caught off guard when they were saying that Quebec were being bullied and teased and culturally appropriated just for a bit of food, like it's chips, cheese and gravy, and that's what you're picking people on for, or I guess just wrapping everything up in. But man, it's so strange as an idea just to be, I mean, it was such a loved dish these days, actually had a kind of negative connotation. Now, I also did love the line that it was deemed to be a farmer's dish, you know, a good hearty meal, so to say, after a tough day's work, and especially because the cheese is lasting for such a short window of time. You have the potatoes that you can grow on the farm, you obviously have the cows and everything like that is just going to be providing the cheese, and from there, I guess the gravy, just do your best. But no, I can absolutely understand how if you are just working a hard day's work out on the land, just using your hands, wrangling cows and wrestling sheep and everything like that, then to get back and just have especially in Canada, oh man, have a nice warm, just carb-loaded meal, it would put people to sleep.
In 1983, others that follow used inferior cheese, which is why the dish reputation declined. Poutine was largely perceived as an unsophisticated and unhealthy junk food that was supposed to be consumed after a night of drinking. In the 1990s, attempts were made to elevate the dish by using baked potatoes and dog stock. In November 2001, Martin Picard of Bistrot au Pied de Cochon began serving a foie gras poutine, which was praised by the consumers and food critics. This influenced chefs in Toronto and Vancouver featured poutine in their menus. Chef Mark McEwen served lobster poutine at his Bymark Eatery, and Chef Jamie Kennedy served braised beef poutine at his eponymously named restaurant. Over the next decade, poutine gained acceptance and popularity in all types of restaurants, from haute cuisine to fast food, and spread across Canada and internationally. Today, the dish is celebrated in many annual poutine festivals in Quebec, the rest of Canada, and in the United States. When the dish gained popularity outside of Quebec in the mid-2000s, poutine gradually stopped being mocked and became a symbol of Canadian nationalism.
Now look, obviously I have not been around to experience the highs and lows of what poutine has been going through, but my goodness, just the fact that they almost brought it back from the brink of death, it sounded as though it just wasn't going to grow, it wasn't going to be going anywhere. It was just a really, I mean, it hasn't really changed in some regard, but it's just a very, very heavy, fast food, unhealthy dish, whatever you want to be calling it. But then it has such range as well, to be having lobster with it, to be having braised beef with it. I mean, that one I can understand. Even, I think she said foie gras, of which I obviously just pronounced incorrectly, but really just to be having all these different things. I'm sure you can put salmon with it, you can put trout with it, I'm sure you can basically put anything that you can put your mind to, you can put on chips, because that's literally all it is. You're just putting, I guess, like anything you would have a side of chips with, you can basically have with this. But I even just love the fact that Canada embraced the entire thing. You know, they'd had a bit of a dip, but they came back fighting.
Some people think that there is a cultural appropriation because Quebec is a province that considers itself distinct from the rest of Canada. Even worse when Canadians from other provinces ridicule the province for the dish they now love. The popularity also brought chains such as McDonald's, Wendy's, A&W, KFC, Tim Hortons, and many more to sell their versions of poutine in Canada. Along with creativity, Montreal's multiculturalism has led to many versions of the dish, inspired by other cuisines.
Cool.
What is your favorite version of the dish? Let me know in the comments down below. And thanks for watching. Bye.
Oh, I can just imagine all the different combinations. You have to let me know what is the weirdest, biggest, wackiest, whatever you want to be calling it. What have you gone out of your way to try and just really just actually ended up enjoying? Or maybe what you didn't end up enjoying was also be an interesting story as well. But I'm sure there are plenty of things that would go with it and plenty more that wouldn't. But really, I guess it's just open to your imagination and really how welcoming Canada can be. And to be fair, Canada is pretty welcoming. And so I guess just as long as you do not stray too far from the truth and too far from its roots, you know, you got the chips, the cheese, and the gravy. And as long as you include that, the toppings don't matter. Go for your life and enjoy your life to your heart's content, or your heart explodes when it just hits and realizes what it's just eaten.